There is rarely a day where I open my eyes 3:30, 4:30, 5:30 a.m. where I'm not excited to get out of bed. I don't wake up and go, oh my God, really, I don't want to start this day and roll over. I'm like, I get to start this day. And that's a 7-day a week success story.
Welcome to the Empowered Life Podcast,
A space dedicated to spreading the message that you have the power within to create everything you seek.
So if you're ready to enroll in a new kind of higher learning, the kind that leads to true personal freedom, hang here with us.
We're your hosts, Rudi and Aniston, and this is Empowered Life. Welcome to the Empowered Life Podcast. I'm your host, Rudi Riekstins, and today I am joined by the incredible best-selling author of The Universe is Hiring, the creator of Called to Create, and also my beautiful, beautiful wife. Aniston, welcome to the Empowered Life Podcast. Thank you for joining me.
Well, thank you. I'm super happy to be here on this rainy day here in Wilmington, North Carolina. For those of you tuning in, what do we do on rainy days on a weekend? We record podcasts, but we love it. We love doing this together. So when we have a chance and Rudi's home and I'm home and we have the space, we take it.
So I was preparing for a 8-hour training that I was doing inside of a large organization in New York City. And I actually phrased the training as the separation age. We know we went through the Stone Age, the Industrial Age, and we've gone through all of these shifts and changes. And right now, I believe we are in an age of separation. And what I mean by that is there's ultimately really just two ways that you can live your life. You can look at the glass half empty, half full, but it's also about the people that are taking committed action towards achieving their highest and their greatest potential. And if I was to translate this for you in the simplest forms possible, if you had two companies selling a similar product and one is outperforming and outpacing the other one, it's simply because one of those organizations is looking at the glass half full with tremendous opportunity, and then they're taking committed action every single day. And the more we live in a state of being able to take committed action, of doing the inner work, of addressing the inner child, of looking at the limiting beliefs, of looking at patterns and behaviors that are around you, updating and curating better ways of communicating. All of this is going to add to individually and then collectively how you're going to be able to move forward in this life. And ultimately, that's going to create tremendous separation, not only with companies, because I work mostly in companies, but with individuals. And so I want you to be thinking today as we go throughout this episode, what is the dream that you've had for your life? And then why have you not been able to achieve that? And literally 95% of people never achieve their dreams. They write goals down, aspirations down, and they never meet them. And so this really is about talking about what is it going to take in order to be able to achieve it. Aniston was sharing with me moments before we hit record. She was just saying, it's just insane that we are right now in an age of information, and we were in an information age, but we've now gotten to the point where information is now about taking the information that we have readily available to us and then being able to implement that. I would love for you to share a little bit of your thoughts in what is creating the lack of people taking this incredible information we have, ChatGPT as an example, and then actually doing something with that information.
I think that for all of us, we have been in this stage of expanding our minds. And I think that's been normal. And it's been a really necessary part of the process of reaching out and finding books and finding teachers and finding information that can give our minds something to chew on to make sense of everything that is going on and everything that is happening and to make sense of our lives. However, moving into 2026 and beyond, the days of just consuming, and not doing anything with it are quickly coming to an end, because what's going to happen is you're going to feel like you're beating your head against a wall. And what you're going to realize is that all that information has not actually been integrated. And the way you know if it's been integrated is if you're doing it and you're doing it regularly. And when you do it, and what we're mostly talking about are tactics and tools that will help you manage your energy, manage your state, manage your mindset so that you can live a beautiful, harmonious, peaceful life. But really what it comes down to is, are your behaviors allowing you to feel better? Are they actually shifting you one way or another? And what you might find first is some of your behaviors that are actually, when you do them or after you do them, you feel worse. And so it's about becoming aware of that. And then it's really nailing down then, okay, well, what could I do instead that will allow me to feel better? Because this is all about full accountability, you guys. Like, this is taking full accountability for who you are. And also, if you're not sure about something or you feel unclear of the how, then find out the how, but then do it. Like, actually do it, because a lot of the learning comes in the doing.
I had started my 8-hour training by asking everybody that was in the room to first write out on a piece of paper, on a scale of 1 to 10, where would they rate the happiness of their life? And it was a private exercise that was not to be shared. And it was just to take a few moments. Music was playing and saying, how happy are you? Not just now, not in this moment, not for the day, not for tomorrow, not for what's coming up, just overall. How happy are you? And everybody then secretly wrote down their 1 out of 10 happiness quota, and then they put it in their pockets. And I then said to them, we're in the age of separation. And the difference between whether we do achieve or whether we don't achieve is not for a lack of information. And we've set this whole episode up around there is so much information. Gosh, Aniston, being married to you for 14 years now, I have never seen somebody inhale information as much as I've seen you inhale it. And I think why this is such a beautiful conversation is because it wasn't until you created practices to actually implement all of what you knew. It's one thing to know something, but it's something completely different to actually do something with that information.
Yeah, like the knowing didn't change me. It made me a great conversationalist. I could sit and talk your ear off about a lot of different topics, but it wasn't actually from any kind of energetic authority. And you can't have authority on something unless you're embodying it. You're actually doing it yourself, right? And so it comes back down to being in integrity and merging what you know with who you are and your behavior.
So I challenge this entire audience right there, randomly. I haven't even said, good morning, my name is Rudi. I just start with, what is your happiness on a scale of 1 to 10? And then they write it out. And then I said to them, I right now am going to put my hand in my pocket and I'm going to pull out $100. And whoever can tell me, and then I made something up and I just said, how do you change the carburetor on a D120 John Deere lawnmower? And everyone looked at me like I was crazy. And I said, I'm going to give $100 to the first person that can stand up and give me the step-by-step instructions of how to do this. And everybody no one moved. They just looked at me. And then one person said, can we use our phones? And I said, you can use whatever you want. It's $100. Who's going to get it? And then about 20, 30 seconds of silence, somebody stood up and said, the first thing you do is take off this, and the second step, and they read through each of the steps and say, congratulations, here's $100. And I used it to emphasize the point that we can have access to anything. No one in that room is a mechanic. Nobody has ever changed the carburetor on this particular lawnmower. That was like a ridiculous question to ask in a business setting. But it further emphasized the point that it's not just about knowing, now it's about a time of doing. We just set you up beautifully as somebody who has collected just a plethora of knowledge. You've read truly more books than anyone I know, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of books that you just seem to inhale. Sitting right across from me in my studio is our bookshelf. And I'm just reminded of like how many books I read versus how many books you read. And I think I read a lot. And something changed in you where you realized it wasn't about now just collecting information. What was that moment, and how can you support people in taking information and no longer just taking it in, but actually creating a pathway to put it into practice?
Yeah, for me, I actually started to feel this inner nudge to slow down on the consuming and instead to double down on the doing, right? So rather than me flying through information, taking my time with it. I once heard someone said, you would be better off reading one book a year and actually embodying even 3 main ideas out of that book, like fully embodying them, bringing them into your life. And so many times where it becomes a part of your default mode, than you would be reading 100. And that really sat with me because all of this knowledge, yes, I love, because I actually just love the art of learning. That's a part of who I am, but it can't come at the cost of me embodying. And as a teacher, as are you, Rudi, like as a teacher of embodiment, the last year I've really slowed down on what I'm learning from other people, and I've allowed me to be my project, because I know that I can only heal people to the degree that I heal myself. I can only transform someone to the degree that I've transformed myself. And so if I'm not doing what I teach at a mastery level, then I have no business teaching it, because I won't be able to get people there. I can say all the right words, but energetically and from a frequency perspective, it will be out of alignment. So that's for me why I stopped the overconsumption. And it's not, I mean, I will tell you, it's so much easier to consume than it is to actually put it into practice. I get it. It is so much easier because you come up against resistance and your reasons, and it's new and it feels out of your comfort zone. But the change, I feel like I have changed so much in the last calendar year because of this.
You're definitely not the same person you were a year ago. I want to give some context to our audience. If you are not following me and or Aniston or I and our journey very closely, Aniston used to be in corporate America. She was a senior vice president of a $1.5 billion brand, did incredibly well for herself, leading a large team. And I would have called her very impactful in what it was that she was doing. In addition to that, she used to co-host the podcast with me, Empowered Life. And then beginning of last year, she decided to create a shift. She wanted to now deepen her ability to impact people. She stepped away from her corporate role. She published it was a year in the process. It's not like you decide one day and the next day you put out a book, but she had published in the beginning of last year a book that immediately went to number one on the bestsellers list, which is just truly incredible. I mentioned at the beginning of the show, The Universe is Hiring, and tons of actionable steps of how people can create the change. I know that we have so many of these conversations privately, and obviously people that follow us don't have access to that private conversation. But you left corporate America for no other reason than you were putting a book out that really speaks into how do you embody, in other words, become the better version of yourself by taking very specific steps, changing your thought process around what you're doing and how you're doing it. And had you kept your corporate job, you wouldn't have been in your truth. You're not saying everybody needs to leave, but you needed to actually step away from what you were doing so you could step into who you have been destined to become. And I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I would argue if you had stayed in corporate America, you would have felt like a fake and a fraud having put the book out, because you were speaking into stepping into your knowing, your purpose, your power, and becoming the end result of your work. And so I would love for you to speak on that.
My book came out days before having to make one of the hardest decisions of my life. And for 2 years, as you said, books don't get published overnight. And it was such a process. And that book grew me, and it challenged me and expanded me. And I would be writing and I would be imagining all these people it was going to impact, and all these people that it was going to be able to meet where they are at and help them make these big decisions when they come up. And so they always know and trust that they can follow their heart, and they can make the hard decision knowing that their purpose is important and there's a responsibility there to fulfill it. So when my book came out and I was at the precipice of having to make a decision that felt like I was at a crossroads and my heart was torn, because to leave a position I loved and people that I loved and had created just incredible depth and relationship with, and my team. But then there was that voice in my heart I just couldn't ignore. I just knew I was being pulled way out of my comfort zone to go deeper in an area on a path I hadn't walked yet. And it was actually my book. When I held it in my hands and I looked at the title, The Universe is Hiring, Discover the Role You Were Born to Fill. And I flipped through the chapters that I knew I had to follow my own advice. And I felt like, wow, I really wrote this book for my future self. All those years, I had no idea as I was writing it that holding the book I wrote in my hands was going to be the tipping point for me, because I knew I'd be out of my integrity if I didn't take the action that I was prescribing for so many others. Not to everyone leave their jobs, but for everyone to follow your heart and to be in alignment.
I want to digress for a second, because while you were speaking, I was thinking of an interview I heard with Eckhart Tolle where he was saying, he produces bestseller after bestseller after bestseller. And the interviewer had asked him, I think it was at a university, and one of the interviewers were reading questions from the students. And the question was, how do you plan or prepare to write a best-selling book? And he turned around and he said, you never, ever plan to write a best-selling book. And I'm paraphrasing, but he had said, you write the book to one person. And if you every day wake up and you think about one person whose life can change, and you pour your heart, your soul, and every fiber of your being into that one person, it will become a best-selling book. What you just said took it one step further, and that is that one person is you. So I would love for you to speak into a little bit, for the benefit of everybody listening that is wanting to step into their deeper knowing of who they are, walk in their truth. And when I use terminology like that, it goes over so many people's heads. And so I want to ground it for a moment. I want you to imagine you wake up every single day and you're excited to get out of bed because you get to live your life. You get to walk and talk in your truth. You're not pretending to be somebody. You're not changing personalities based on who you're in front of and what you need to say. There's no filtering. It's just you. When you go to bed at night, you feel deeply and beautifully fulfilled because you know you are walking in your truth. And I don't think there's anything more beautiful and powerful than that. Every single person on the planet is wanting to be seen, valued, heard, and or appreciated. I work in corporate America, and the number one complaint I get when working with teams and asking them, what's your gripe in the company you're in? They say, I want to be seen, valued, heard, and appreciated. I'm not being seen, valued, heard, and appreciated. And I want to say to all of them, your responsibility is to see you, to value you, to appreciate you. And when you do that, the world will reflect that back to you. And so what are some practices that we can implement as early as today that will support us in becoming the fullness of who we are, embodying the truth of who we are, so the world can reflect back to us that we are seen, valued, heard, and appreciated?
Well, I can tell you to start, before we talk about these actual practices, that it isn't an accident. You don't accidentally wake up and have a fulfilling life. Not the way our minds are geared to function, not the way the game that we're playing here on earth, which is a very emotional game, and learning how to master emotions. And it does take intention. It takes a tremendous amount of physical discipline, spiritual discipline, and energetic discipline. And as we were thinking about this podcast and really speaking into the practices that Rudi and I are so disciplined about, not because it's a should, but because we know enough now that the benefits are too great to not do them. So it's no longer I have to, it's I am going to. Like, come hell or high water, I am going to do this, because the difference in how I feel about myself, the emotions I get to experience, how hopeful I am, like, there is no comparison. And I actually think one of the easiest ways to present this information, Rudi, if you don't mind, is I'm going to kind of steal the host seat from you for a minute. It's been a minute, but it hasn't been that long since I've been a co-host of the Empower Life podcast. I actually think it would serve individuals if we got granular for a minute, because I get to hear some questions that your clients like have on the community, like in your community calls. I get to hear what are the common questions you get from your corporate coaching clients, your executive leaders. And not everyone is privy to that. And oftentimes it doesn't matter what level you're at. We all just want someone to sit down and be like, let me tell you how. Let me tell you how to do this step by step and make it so simple that you take the complexity out of it, and which goes the excuse not to do it. So I want to start with a question for you. This is going to sound so basic, okay? Because, and again, to all the listeners, what we're talking about here are the practices that will fundamentally create a shift for you if done, and done with discipline, and done over time. And I want to start with how you actually start your day, Rudi, when you want to be in a powerful emotional state.
You asked for the granular
Yes.
simplicity
The real.
this response. And so I'm going to give you two variations of how I start my day, depending on how my day starts. And so I want to qualify that for a second. We all wake up mostly as the remembrance of who we were yesterday, meaning the brain literally repeats the information from yesterday today. And so you start to think and feel the way you felt yesterday. And so the way you get out of bed, the gait of your walk from your bedroom to your bathroom, everything is identical. It's literally the same because it's duplicated. But every now and again, I will wake up and I'm riddled with anxiety. I've got a big speaking engagement coming up. Something is shifting me out of my state. And so instead of waking up and Rudi being who Rudi was yesterday and how Rudi felt yesterday, oh no, I feel nervous, anxious, stressed, worried. Maybe I have a problem with one of my clients and I'm trying to think about how to resolve it. There's a misunderstanding and it's eating me alive inside because I'm a man of integrity and I want to fix it, but I haven't had a chance to connect with them. Or maybe there's like a miscommunication with you in our marriage and it's really harping on me and it's playing on repeat. And so when I wake up and I realize in those moments on those days, and they are very few and far between for me, the reason I start here is because this is where the majority of people on the planet live. They live in the reactionary emotions of the things that are on their unconscious or subconscious mind, playing on repeat. And so on the days when I wake up and I am completely debilitated, those are the days that are very different than when I wake up and I'm feeling empowered, inspired, motivated, eager, ready to start my day. There is rarely a day where I open my eyes 3:30, 4:30, 5:30 a.m. where I'm not excited to get out of bed. I don't wake up and go, oh my God, really, I don't want to start this day and roll over. I'm like, I get to start this day. And that's a 7-day-a-week success story. To get up on a Sunday at 5 in the morning, I mean, that's awesome. Most people want to have the sleep in. They want to start their day later. They want to relax. And I'm like, hell no, I want to get my day started. And so on the days when I wake up and I don't want to open my eyes, on the days when my emotions are very charged and I'm feeling stress and anxiety, those days I spend more time curating my emotion. And so I'm going to give you the granular step-by-step answer that you very specifically requested. But I want to preface by saying the single most important skill set that every human being on the planet needs to hone right now, and it is now critical that we learn to control and regulate our emotional state. The brain is a record keeper of the past. It thinks and feels based on the past. It produces new thoughts, new feelings, and then takes new actions based on all old feelings. And so if we're in a cyclical high level of stress, or we've got anxiety, or we're suffering depression, what we're doing is literally reacting the way we did in the past. And we're thinking and feeling and acting all from the feeling of heightened stress or anxiety. So we're not actually in control of our life then. And so we repeat the past, and the future is literally going to be a duplication of the past. And that's ultimately the definition of insanity. And so this entire week, I've had a lot of big projects that I've had to push through. And I had high levels of emotion the moment I woke up. So my morning routine was actually sitting for an hour. Now, I'm not advocating everybody to do this, but I actually came downstairs. I would drink a big glass of water, and then I would breathe in and out. Now, you're going to hear me use words like meditate, and I want you to demystify the word meditation for a second. Meditation is simply just the act of observing your mind. And it's done while you breathe in and breathe out. And so I will sit with my eyes closed, often in my living room, in my office, and I will breathe in and out. Sometimes I don't even put lights on. And while I breathe in, I'm just trying to breathe in and slow my breath rate down. And then when I breathe out, I'm breathing out through an open mouth, and I imagine I'm just breathing out stress. And I actually feel my shoulders go, as I take that exhalation out. And then I'll breathe in again, and I'll just feel myself becoming more calm, intentionally creating the feeling of calm. And then I release the stress and the fear and the anxiety. And while I'm doing this, I'm actually trying to not think. Now, the beautiful part of the brain is it's going to produce thoughts. It's actually going to interrupt and interject your quiet time. But this is intentional because while you're doing the deep breaths in and the deep breaths out, your mind is going to reveal to you what are you thinking about unconsciously. It's when you're sitting in that state of breathing in and breathing out and trying not to think about anything that your problems come to the surface. The thoughts that happen on repeat over and over and over again come to the surface. And so I will oftentimes work in corporate America where I say to the team, they request, can you teach my entire company to be somebody, who can self-regulate inside of 60 seconds? And I say, yes, I can. And we're going to take them through a process of meditation. They're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. We don't want to talk about meditation. This is a business. And so we change the terminology. And so it's just mental rehearsal. It's the process of going into your mind and mentally rehearsing, calming down. You can call it anything you like, but it is the ability to breathe in and out and become the observer of the mind. So when I have a thought that pops up and I'm feeling nervous or anxious or worried, I'm actually grateful. In that moment, I'm not frustrated that the thought came. That's not stopping me from a mental rehearsal. It's not stopping me from quote unquote meditating. You see, people have a misconception that meditation is like void of any emotion. You detach from your body. You can't feel your bladder. And for some people it is. But for the majority of us, that's not meditation. It's purely breathing in and out, calming the mind, calming the body, and then paying attention to what comes out. This morning, I sat in a meditative state for probably about 45 minutes, and I must have had 6 or 7 thoughts that came up that I was not aware of, and they kept coming up on repeat. And I was like, wow, I didn't even realize I was worried about that. I have a project that I've hired somebody internationally to put together for me. And this morning, in that quiet state, it kept coming up, but it was the same situation with different emotion. And I started to realize I have anxiety they're not going to meet the deadline. I have anxiety they're not going to do the work that I want. I have anxiety that I've got to go back and say I'm not happy with what you've produced. And all these different thoughts around the same subject came up. So when I woke up with anxiety, well, ding, 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 it's about this one project. And if you could clarify in your mind exactly what is holding you back, what's causing you the anxiety, what's causing you the stress, now you have the ability to detach from that. And so it's in that quiet moment, I actually say to myself, Rudi, you're not attached to the scene. It's just something that's unfolding. Can we do something different right now that'll produce a different result? And then I'm like, yes, I can just send an email. And then I send the email and then it's gone. And I no longer have that feeling of stress. But few people spend time in their minds. Now, I said there were 2 ways. The second way, it's exactly the same. It's just much shorter. And so I might spend 10 minutes, 15 minutes doing it. And then I feel really good. But the point is to be able to spend time in your mind, in your body, intentionally breathing in. For somebody who is listening to this and is struggling with very, very high levels of stress, anxiety, fear, overwhelm, I'm going to throw in a little good touch of resentment or anger in that. And you want to shift that state of emotion first thing in the morning and then as many times throughout the day as you need to. Breathe in for the count of 4 or 6 or 8, depending on your lung capacity. Whatever feels very comfortable for you to breathe in the maximum amount that you can. And then when you breathe out, I want you to breathe out 2 seconds longer. So if you're breathing in for 6, breathe out for 8. Breathe in again for 6, breathe out for 8. The 2 additional seconds on your exhalation as you were sitting in the morning on your couch, breathing in, breathing out, that is slowing the breath rate. That is calming the mind. And it's actually reducing the stress, the fear, and the anxiety.
So good. This is so good. And I have so many questions, which means this might have to be a 2-part episode. That's fine. Okay. So before we move on to the next question, I just want to say this one thing. Your mind is going to try to make you wrong around this. This is a trap. Okay. Especially if you are like me, if you're listening and you are like me and you've read all the books and all of a sudden you'll notice your morning, what is supposed to be your morning spiritual routine that brings you clarity, peace, joy, and relief becomes another thing to stress about. You come downstairs, you're like, what am I going to do today? Am I going to do this meditation? Should I do breath work instead? But then I've got to do journaling, and then I've got to do this, and then I've got to do this, and I've got to do this. Not everyone's like that, but that I just want to mention this because this was something that I had to work through. I would literally have anxiety about my morning routine and me doing it wrong. It's a very type A thing. I'm a type A Capricorn and I love a good checklist and I love to feel like I'm getting it all done. But my morning routine would literally be 3 hours if I did all the things that I know. So I shifted that last year and it really has helped me. So how I have shifted it is I don't pre-plan what exactly I'm going to do in the morning until I come downstairs. I pour myself a cup of coffee. It's already been made, ready to go. I sit down in my chair in my office. I take some deep breaths. I drop into my body. And then I ask it what it needs. And sometimes what will feel right to me is breath work. Sometimes what will feel right to me is going through a deep guided 30-minute meditation. Sometimes I just need a journal, like journal out a lot of things. Sometimes I need to move and I'll actually do Tai Chi or I'll do some yoga, I'll do some stretching while breathing and just being aware. And I think there's some beauty in that. Rudi also has variety in his morning routine. The key is where I do not negotiate is whether or not I'm going to wake up and do it in the morning. That is without fail happening, whether I'm traveling, whether it's a Saturday or a Sunday. I love weekends because I don't have to rush. I can take all the time I want. But I want to take that guesswork out. And if you're getting trapped in the I'm doing this wrong, you literally can't do it wrong. All you need to do is just say, do I feel better? Is what I'm doing, if the meditation you're doing and you're committed to doing every single day, you don't feel better after you're doing it, do something different. Try something different. Okay, are you ready for the next question?
I am. I just want to add something that you spoke about because I think that that's going to open the door for a lot of people. Men can do the same thing every single day, all day, every day. We can wake up, we can meditate, we can journal, we can cold plunge, we can go to the gym, we can do the hustle and the grind. But women are cyclical. And I'm just going to add this caveat that you're not supposed to do the same thing that men do. Ding, ding, ding. And I know everybody on Instagram is saying the cool thing right now is you have to put yourself in the freezing cold water and then you have to do this and then you have to drink that and then you're a high performer. And I call bullshit on all of that. If you're a woman, you have to pause and ask yourself, what do I need? And what does my body need? And depending on where you are in your cycle, what does my body need? And so I don't want to open up that can of worms on the episode today because we've touched on it, but I want to direct you in the show notes to the Anniston Riekstins show where she covers this in tremendous detail. And I think you're going to find unbelievable value. All of my female clients have been directed to cycle tracking and to be able to understand the cycle and when you should and when you shouldn't be productive and what you should be doing. And so if you are listening to this and you are a woman, it's okay when you wake up and you don't have it in the tank today because it's designed that way.
Game changer, ladies, game changer. And I actually created a 28-day guided course. It's like $97, but it literally takes all the guesswork out, leads you by the hand day by day by day through a 28-day cycle. And it's incredibly powerful. So we'll link that as well if you really just want to dive right in.
I am committed to giving you episodes and information that is going to carry the power and the potential to change something within you. And if we can change a thought, we can change a feeling, we can change the entire trajectory of your future. So this episode is going to be split into two parts. So we're pausing here, and this is very intentional because the hour-long episode has given you a framework that is set up why it is important for you to be able to pause and to create a shift. And now what I want you to do is to actually go and implement a little bit of these shifts. And then tune in next week where we finish out with a total of 7 questions that support you in creating incremental changes that can support you in ultimately living your highest and your greatest potential. I hope that you've enjoyed this episode so far, and I know that you're going to be excited to tune in to catch the rest of them because these are very, very simple, digestible practices that have irrevocably changed the quality of the life that I live today. They're the same practices that I begin with every one of my one-on-one coaching clients. And this is where I'm urging you to pause, to slow down. And this is why I have not aired the entire 1-hour episode. I want you to take time to implement because again, this is the age of information, and we are now moving into what I call the age of separation. And that if you don't take the information that you're learning and putting it into practice, the people that are, they're going to separate from you, and it's going to be hard to catch up. So this is a gift to you. Take the moment, take the pause, and I'll catch you in the next episode of the Empowered Life podcast. Until then, thank you so much, and I love you.
If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe so you don't miss out on future content. And we would love your support in leaving us a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. Make sure to check the show notes for more information on how you can find us online and on Instagram. Now go create an amazing day for yourself, and we'll see you again soon.